screen sharing.
Okay. Well, for the moment, there's nothing we can do about that because
So
I'm
the
not on
last
the post.
the last one I can see is from an Australian, Anthony Williams.
Okay. And what's the status of that?
That one is still pending, but they didn't apply. They like filled out the Google
The last
form.
one I can see is from an Australian, Anthony Williams.
Okay.
But
Well, now, oh, I think someone's YouTube is now playing.
anyways, the proper way to do it is to request the badge through the badge management form and then fill out the Google form, gives us the actual info into the list.
Right. So Taiwan did not do that as far as you know.
Correct.
Okay, but you will now follow up with them and say, hey, here's the right way to go.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think
but
what
since
I'll maybe
we
do
can
too.
get-
Sorry,
Say it
go ahead,
again?
John. I think what I'll do too is make like a work instruction type of thing so that we can redirect them to the form that says do this, then do this. I think that would help because this seems to be kind of a reoccurring thing.
Agreed. Okay, good. So modifying that spreadsheet updates the map automatically. So Sarah, it sounds like MASB is not needed in order for you to hand the new list to Jonathan and ask him to reconcile the operating list with your new list.
Correct. I should be able to go in and uncheck the active or the inactive
Right.
Chapters, and they will no longer show up on the map.
Right. And make sure that there are none that need to be made active given Sarah's audit. And Sarah, have you given Jonathan access to your new list? Sarah, who is on mute?
No, that's not finalized yet.
Okay, but it's time.
Okay.
Okay. Okay. So Jonathan, if you don't get it soon, it's your job to pester Sarah. This is
Gotcha,
my
I can do
job
that.
around here, just to make sure the right people are pesterers and the right people are pesterees.
Yes, and it'll be easy if it comes to light that somebody is still an active chapter. It's easy to turn it back on.
That's great. Okay. Well, that's great. That will be a new chapter in the chapter of chapters. If we can update the whole thing based on this initial audit. So that'll be great. Let's try to make that so. I'm switching topics. I'm going to Lumio now. I can probably share my screen. And I can now report that Maddie's proposal has passed. Maddie, you're with us, right? Maddie, who is on mute.
Yes, sorry, I'm looking for the button.
Right.
Yay, that's wonderful news.
Cool. You got 23 votes, 92%. One vote against. I wonder who voted against and why. It's worth checking. Often these votes against have got some useful feedback. So Maddie, what happens next?
So sorry, I'm also eating my lunch while I'm listening in. Um, I guess I'll just kind of go ahead and start reaching out though, even prior to the proposal being approved. I've kind of already been sort of working on making those connections, going to for example, this past April, attending the Maryland School of the Blind CD On Festival where fortuitously
Cool.
got to meet some different Maryland state organizations. For example, they're like assistive device program for Maryland. So I started, already kind of keeping in contact with that and just seeing how we can support them because apparently they also have, some 3D printing capabilities. So I've kind of, networked with um, one of their point of contacts, to offer kind of enable even our bigger enable community because it seems like, it's a new program for the Maryland state, I guess, assistive technology program. So, trying to maybe even look into, I guess, moving forward, any DC equivalent, Virginia equivalent that may also, have um, programs or organizations like that that we can support as well as the 3D printing community. So making moves on that, but definitely going to try to put um,
That's
put
great.
more
I hope
effort.
you will, in fact, let me suggest that you um, somehow celebrate the fact that this is on. You might want to
Yeah.
create a space in the hub for outreach.
Okay.
You should recognize that part of outreach is engaging other community members in the process with you as quarterback and pestering coordinator. And note that according to this timeline, you want to begin with research and stakeholder mapping. And so an ongoing map that people can look at, just who's connected to whom, with some invitation for people to say, hey, I know this organization, and then it gets added to the map, might be a good way of building out the understanding of what organizations there are out there, what the space is like, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Make sense?
Yes. And how would it be like a new workspace that I would create? And then I guess how would I have the authority or capability to do that,
I'll
or
tell
is
you what,
that someone I need to work
if
with?
if if Sarah will give me screen sharing abilities, and Maddie, if you will turn on your camera just so I know you're really there. She is. Nice
Yes,
shirt.
taking notes and oh, thank you. I'm eating my lunch.
That's okay.
John, you
Um,
should be able to screen share now.
Great, thank you. Sharing my screen and going to hub.enable.org. And Maddie, I presume you are in the hub, but what you may not have explored was the My Spaces area. And you can see there are all sorts of spaces here. Most of them get set up for some purpose and then they remain there forever. I don't think they do any harm. If I look for outreach, I see that we have a space for outreach and advancement. Adam, when he was coming on
Oh.
board, set it up, and I see that he created a spreadsheet. See, this is why it's not bad having lingering spaces in which he mentioned a few initiatives. Interestingly, none of these ring a bell, but you're going to want to check this. Several project ideas, interesting ideas, and some thoughts, the beginnings of some thoughts about initiatives. The truth is, Adam's efforts on outreach proceeded along a different course. And Sarah and I are pestering him right this minute, even as he officially is stepping back from his work with e-NABLE to hand over information about the state adaptive technology organizations that he had made some relationships with. And hopefully he will pass them on to Sarah or me or you, and then you will,
Yeah.
you'll go to town with it. Back to this space, we see there are 24 members, but I'll bet they don't well, no, it's not right. Space has 6 members: Evan, Eric, Adam, John, Jeremy, Rick. One imagines that Adam is the administrator. But at this point, I would need help remembering how we, well, let me try one more thing. So here's the space. It has 6 members. I am one of the members, which is probably why I'm seeing this. My guess is that if you go to the hub, you click on spaces, you go to OA for outreach and advancement, you'll be invited to join. And then you'll be in the boat with me. I don't know if there's an administrator. I think there probably is. But if there's something you can't do, ask and we'll figure out how to give you the power. But
Okay, awesome. Yeah, I'll start from here, joining the space, and then just kind of adding and populating stuff from here.
that's great. And remember, most people don't see the space. So you'll want to, once you've sort of cleaned up the house, you'll want to have an open house of some sort and invite people to contribute, et cetera, et cetera. This is why we
Okay.
pay the big bucks, which brings us to another topic. You should now start logging your time. Let me suggest you have a spreadsheet that just, has a column for day, a column for start, a column for stop. And every time you put in some time on this, you fill in a row, you describe in a phrase or two what you're working on, providing links wherever possible, so that if we want to say, what did she mean by that? We can just click the link and see what's happening. I wonder whether you would like a email address like outreach@enable.org, or whether you'd like to be communicating with third parties as yourself. What do you think?
I do have my, I guess, enable DC email, but I'm wondering if maybe it might be good to just, so that all the, I guess, emails and correspondences related to outreach will just be kind of
Well,
in
that's right.
one.
I'll tell you what, I will
template.
create the
Yeah.
space. It's up to you whether you log into it to send out emails or merely CC outreach@enable.org. And that
Okay.
way, when you eventually retire and move on, we won't have the problem we're having with Adam, which is that we can't, right? Okay,
Yeah, actually, I think that's a great idea, so that it could be
okay.
transferred, whenever that ever happens, or if it's
So I'll make a note to get you that email address, blah, 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 workflow. Create outreach at enable.org. Okay. And you will come to, let's say, most town hall meetings and be prepared to give us an update on how things are going. And that'll be great.
Yes.
That's what I know, that I know we should do in order to help get you off to a good start. Anything else you know we should do to get you off to a good start?
No, I think this is a good, I have a good list of action items to work on, focus on, so I think I'm good with the game plan. Thank you so much, Joe.
And, I think it would be entirely appropriate for you to use this as an opportunity to do some churning for the DC chapter, which you're leading, in such a way that what you do becomes templates for others to do.
Yes, yeah.
that we have not funded the DC chapter per se, but I think it's it's a good opportunity for you to do some double dipping by
Mhm.
prototyping some processes and benefiting your own chapter while creating models and promoting the models that other chapters hopefully can adopt, et cetera, et cetera.
That's a good kind of goal initiative is to kind of, as you know, I'm going through this, I'm definitely going to kind of document um any useful like best practices. That's kind of what I'm hoping to have, you know,
I think that's great.
a working draft, like you said, for the whole community to hopefully adopt and, you know, modify as needed, but at least, you know, some structure or template to help them get
Sure.
started or help
You know,
outreach.
there
Yeah.
are, I am a big fan of the Helping Hands group in the Southeast. If you look for Helping Hands, I think .org, you'll find it's sort of a e-NABLE spinoff. They do some wonderful stuff in a very organized way. And so thinking about best practices and quite possibly using your new charter to interrogate particularly successful chapters, say, what do you do, et cetera, I think is a great idea. The Taiwan chapter described their work in a town hall meeting a few months ago. They've got a nice program. These two come to mind because they have real world events which bring people in and engage people. In South Carolina, they have, I think, 2 times a year family get-togethers for families of kids with limb differences. And it's sort of a social gathering, a chance for the kids to play with other kids just like them. Typically, I think they've got an adult who has, you know, gone through the whole process there as an inspirational speaker, and the parents get to talk to each other also. It's, I think, a big service to the families. It's a good example of going beyond just the printing of 3D prosthetics, and yet I suspect it also brings them candidates for 3D printing prosthetics. So there's one interest.
Right.
What the Taiwan group does, as I recall, is every Sunday they have open houses in a makerspace. And they work on, frankly, that's about all I remember. They have open houses. I think they typically are working on a hand for a client, but it's also a chance to say, here's how you use a 3D printer, et cetera, et cetera. I think those kinds of real world social activities
Yeah.
is a really nice complement to what we've done a lot of. So that's what comes to mind there. And in a few weeks, we'll talk to Maddie and say, so Maddie, how's it going? And you'll tell us which, if any, of these things you've followed up on and how you've done it and which other things you're trying. It's a good moment to think about and think about trying a lot of things.
Yeah.
Trying something doesn't mean you're committed to following through on it, but I think you are committed to trying a number of things, and then we see which of them stick to the wall.
Right.
Cool.
Thank you.
Going back to Lumio. I can also report that is it Ian Roy? I'm blanking on Ian's last name, I'm embarrassed to say.
I think so. Yeah.
And
You're
his
right.
name ought to be right here. There it is, Ian Roy. That's right. His proposal has now passed with 23 votes, 96%. So he's going to be working on the NIH 3D Print Exchange and also trying to somehow consolidate and coordinate all of our device listings. Maddie is one of now 3 granted leaders, you, Sarah, and Ian. I think it probably would be a good idea for you guys to compare notes with each other, keep each other on the ball, and to see what kind of crosstalk there is. But obviously, one of the challenges to many chapters has been they don't know which devices. And that's partly because we have an embarrassment of device listings, and it's hard to sort out which are the relatively small number of good to go devices. So you might want to talk to Ian about that, for example. And now I can report with some sadness and some gratitude that my proposal got the threshold of 20 votes at the very last minute, but it only got 77%. This says 18. On the main page, I think it says 20. The main page is the right one. Let me just check. So I'm going to Lumio. I'm going to the dashboard. I'm going to e-NABLE and looking to see whether we have the number 18 or the number 20. There it is. So the true criterion is 20 total votes with at least 80%. And I got 20 votes, but only 77%. And there were some good comments made. And as I was revising the proposal in order to see if I could modify it, prolong the life of this proposal, and take it over the top, I became more sympathetic to some of those comments. And so Patrick and I are going to update the proposal. One of the things I found was that the workflow, the very detailed workflow that Patrick worked out, was very click intensive on the side of the moderators. And I began to have doubts that the system would flow spontaneously and freely as much as I wanted. So this will be back, but it will be improved. And it will be improved in part because people had good critical feedback. And I thank them for that. That's my announcement. So we have thank you, Maddie. So we've talked about the chapter audit. We've talked about outreach and chapters. So Maddie and Jonathan should compare notes on the chapter process as well. As I see it, Maddie is her prime function is to engage in outreach to other adaptive, enable-ish, or client organizations like the Amputee Coalition, et cetera, But then the trick is going to be to connect them, if they have interest, with live chapters. Jonathan and Sarah are doing a good job of updating our list of live chapters. But I'm guessing, Maddie, that there are going to be some direct conversations with Jonathan and Sarah and the hub to figure out which of the live are really, really alive and really good ones to act as touch points or prototyping partners to the various agencies you're reaching out to. I'm making this up as I go along, but the point is we've got now the chapter audit making progress, Maddie's project making progress, Ian's project making progress. And I would like to see these emerging leaders, the people I've just named, talking to each other and beginning to push us around, telling us what we need to do and how we can support you. My only action item that I know is to set up an outreach email address for Maddie, and I'll do that as soon as this meeting is over. And this concludes my list of things I know that we want to talk about. Let me ask you guys if there's some topics you'd like to put on the table for the second half hour of our chapter leaders meeting. I'll wait. Okay, we can end early. But I guess I'd appreciate if people would turn on their screens or say something, so I know I'm not just talking into there's Maddie, okay. Nothing to add, Maddie?
Um, oh, I was like chatting because I was like still eating, but I was just mentioning that uh I've or two one former Enable DC volunteer, I kind of helped him. He wanted to make a Enable chapter for his high school in DC. So, I kind of put him on my list of possible nearby chapters to collaborate with. And in Maryland, too, where I live, nearby, there are two, high schoolers that were very interested in, having their own Enable chapter and, hoping for like hand building events. So it's really inspiring to see and getting to interact with like the local youth who are, wanting to be these leaders and building these organizations. So it's funny because I'm kind of dipping into that space too as I'm doing my own outreach and luckily they were able to find, my information. I think through the website because I think they tried to find the closest one and they found Enable DC. So I have, the Enable community and hub to thank for that. So we're all
That's good
like,
to hear.
connecting and working with each other. So I just wanted to mention that.
No, that's great. We've got all of these pieces and they all do actually work pretty well. But they all could work better. And I'm hoping that this new cohort of leaders will feel free to stimulate each other to take it to the next level and to take it in directions that we old farts have run out of fresh ideas for. Jonathan, nice to see your face. Anything you want to add?
No, I just made a post on the main forum kind of outlining how to become a chapter, so hopefully that can kind of get around.
Cool. May I look at it?
I tagged you all in it as well, so
Okay.
um,
I see that I'm screen sharing. I didn't realize that, but yes, that seems to have been okay. Okay. A quick post on how to become an official chapter. Request a chapter badge, then fill out the form. Both need to be requested. And thanks. Now there is a longer description, right? But is this all we need? Or do you want
that
to link
is
existing page with information?
that first one does have all the information on it.
Yes, it does. Okay, then I think that's great. Tell them just what they need to know. I'm gonna pin this so it stays at the top for a while. Except I don't see how to pin it. Oh, change to public. It was in the enable forum. Well, it can't hurt to make it public. So I have done. And Sarah, do you know what it takes to pin a post?
Sorry, yes, I can pin it. If
Okay.
you
I would have thought I could, but I can't. So please do. Okay, thanks for doing that, Jonathan. I think that's great. You know what? Let me suggest that you find a good image to put there. As on social media, I think some kind here, I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna steal this logo that's on my screen. I can edit this. I can do this and paste and click.
Awesome.
Well, I got to admit, not a huge improvement, but a little bit more eye-catching. Okay. All right. Thank you, Jonathan.
thank
Any
you.
other last words or comments, Sarah?
yes, but not for chapter leaders. I was hoping if you have time that we could use the last 25 minutes for our weekly check-in.
Okay, that'd
Is
be
that
great.
okay?
We should mention, speaking of chapters though, that in a few days, Sarah is going to be in Istanbul, where I think she's going to be meeting with the head of that very interesting chapter and very long-standing chapter, as well as, we hope, but I gather it's not quite locked in yet, with a group of Kurdish people from the northern border who are trying to establish their own chapter for their oppressed and recently war-torn minority on the border between Syria and Turkey. So the sun never sets on the e-NABLE empire, and our roving ambassador is going to be in the right place at the right time. Those are all the updates we have. We can end this meeting. Maddie, congratulations, good luck, and Godspeed. Jonathan, stay on Sarah's case in order to get the map updated. And Sarah, you can stick